Hi, my name is Samir, and I am Executive Director of Common Good Christians. I live in New York, in Harlem. I have two beautiful girls, and I have dedicated this year to a historical moment we find ourselves as Christians to do my part in whatever I can.
Samir, talk to me a little bit about your own journey to this place spiritually and how that has political impact in your life now.
Yeah, I grew up in a Muslim family, actually secular Muslim family in Balkans, and when I became a Christian, my parents threw me out of home, and I was for 2 years alone, living out my faith, from home to home, and sacrificed a lot in order to get to the seminary and become a pastor, and I've been pastor for 10 years. And I realized that I was called by God and called by my faith to step out of the line and actually find the kingdom of God in the world. And so that's my journey. It has been a cyclical in some ways. And I think realizing the kingdom of God is found outside the boundaries of our religious institutions and organizations was equally important to me as conversion in the first place.
Were you shocked by the election of Donald Trump? Did you have to realign your ideas about what Christians were like in America when you realized that 82% of white Christians, white evangelicals, 60% of Catholics had voted for him and still support him?
When I realized what has happened in terms of a Christian support for Trump, and not just Trump as a person, but like ideas that he's promoting, the way he sees the world, the way he constructs reality and conceives of people's relationships and meaning of life, and that Christians would buy into that, it was really not just embarrassment, it was sort of like deep disappointment inside, and realizing that I don't know enough, that I had assumptions and it didn't hold. And when this sort of crisis happened, a lot of things became visible in the world, a lot of things became visible in Christianity, and there's a lot of new clarity for me. I feel very much clearer now than I was, let's say, 3 years ago.
If you were going to say, look, here are the three or two or one important thing that people who come from a Christian background, wherever they are now, can do in the upcoming elections, what is it? How do we get enough people to vote from the former Christian community or the present Christian community to do something about Trump?
Yeah, I think most important things for Christians is to go back to their formative experience of why they have become Christians in the first place. Go back to the roots. Go back to that mystery and magic of faith, and come from that place and come grounded from that experience and with that courage, and then see reality around themselves in their context, in their political context, and then act on it. And I'm convinced that most people who are Christians who have come to faith, that they will be more involved politically, and they will act and volunteer and do whatever possible to overthrow the ideas that are literally hurting people. There are ideas of violence and judgment and mocking. I don't even know where would I begin to express how these ideas are incompatible with Christian faith.
Why do you think people who say they follow Jesus can go along with Trump's racism, bigotry, misogyny, molesting women, and all the rest? How do you square this, Samir?
I think it's insecurity in their faith. They need to belong to a group that is defined by specific sort of extra biblical beliefs that they have, that are the weirder, the stronger they are, because it gives them a sense of belonging. And instead of making a walk of faith and steps of faith in their lives, they cling to simple sociological human dynamics of every other group. What's happening right now, that Christianity is everything but countercultural at this point. It is actually buying in the lowest common denominators, the most debased baseline that they can possibly do. And so that's what I feel is behind that. It's a abandoning of one's faith experience.
Do you have hope for changing some of this, or at least enough perception so we can pry a sliver of these white evangelical votes away and bring them back to some understanding that following Jesus means you just can't follow someone like Donald Trump?
I think what's going to happen is ultimately the realities have its way. They will see too much love and kindness around them outside of the boundaries they have created, and they will become more honest about what they're really hearing in the churches, what they're really doing, and how it's impacting the world. And that honesty is actually going to be the liberation for them.
Samir, you're an old friend of mine, and you have invited me to speak at an event that you've put together. First of all, what's it called?
It's called San Juans Summit.
Okay, and you are not a politician, but this has political overtones. It has something to do coming out of the background of being rather shocked, surprised, and upset by, I think, not just Trump's election, but the number of people who profess to be Christians who voted for him and now still support him. Is that correct?
Yes, of course.
So can you tell me a little bit about this?
It is just like some veil has been removed from what I thought I knew, and I realized I don't. And we all caught by what has been brewing on for a long time. And I feel it's actually a lot of Christian theology that has gone, stale or just plain wrong. And over time, it's kind of bore fruit now that's visible to a lot of us. And this has been very exhausting, very hurting, very burdensome, to experience all of this. So we have decided to get here in the mountains of Colorado and go on a hill, so to speak, under blue skies, and fill our batteries and conspire for this historical moment to make up, do what we got to do.
You're very connected with the Christian world. You've done a lot of different things. I've seen you at various conferences. You've pulled together a bunch of people, as I understand it. Here, you were saying a moment ago to me before we started doing this interview, to try to talk to disaffected Christians around the edge of the evangelical movement and peel them away from voting for Trump again, and also try to get them back to voting for people who will oppose him in Congress and in 2018 and then in 2020.
Yeah, I think a lot of Christians who are sort of at the edge of their churches and their organizations are afraid to step out, to actually withdraw their funding and vote with their feet and leave, because they think if they leave there is nothing out there, that they're abandoning somehow Christian path. But what happens is you turn around and there's Jesus and God alive and well in the world and doing great things, and adventure actually starts. There's so many great people and great Christians and practitioners out there that are available for communion, for working together, for deepening one's faith. So what we want to do, instead of kind of hunkering in as a church, we want to open the doors and actually let people flow out.
How does that fit in, though, with getting people, just to get to the brutal point, to vote for Democrats to stop Trump's madness through congressional action in 2018, and then later to throw him out of office? How does this actually translate?
Well, it's translated, they need to really start believing God that is present in them. It's a biblical promise that Christ can be within you, and that you trust your conscience, and you trust the good and beautiful that you see in the world, and you walk with this confidence. And with that kind of wisdom and that kind of a radar for what's beautiful, you actually start thinking with your own mind and building a life you can call your own. And your Christian journey you can call your own. So I think a lot of people are actually hungry for that, and it happens by claiming your freedom first.
I am John Pavlovitz. I'm an author and pastor and lover of people.
How may I atone? I ask myself these questions silently and inwardly. How may I atone for helping to poison America with certainty addiction? How do I defend my grandchildren against the religious rights juggernaut I helped create? How do I reject what my parents stood for, fundamentalist fanaticism, and yet honor the love they gave me? How can I help my grandchildren stumble upon the goodness of life before they're sold towering mounds of brain-damaging garbage? How do I help save the world? And what kind of deluded messianic fool am I to believe that this is even possible?